Good morning and welcome to our page, our live for empathy, intuition, and awakening. I am so excited to be here with Michelle J. Howe. She actually is the one that created this and started this and reached out to me. So I'm truly excited to be able to create this series of maybe a series. We don't know yet. We're going to just explore with it a bit, but know that Michelle and I are here to answer questions and help you out. We're going to do a little introduction in a moment. And I also want to just say we're using StreamYard right now. So StreamYard requires you to give them your name for us to be able to see who's asking questions or comments. So please go ahead and post in the comments your name, where you're coming from, and let us know as we flow through this what you're interested in learning or if you have questions. For an introduction, I'm just going to go ahead and say who I am, and then Michelle will, and then we'll just, it will be a conversation, a flow of talking about what empathy is, how we use our intuition, and what awakening could be for you, because it's different for everyone depending on where they are. I'm Cathleen, Elle. For those of you who don't know me, my position is that I assist people in moving through their sudden and unexpected passing or a transition of their loved one, and helping people to release the pain, the numbness, the challenges that they are experiencing, and move through and into an awakening, love-filled, connected, joyous life. And I can give you a little bit more about that later, but Michelle, why don't you go ahead and you can introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Howe. I am the founder of Empath Evolution. I work with heart-centered people who are seekers, are interested in learning about feelings and emotions. My mission is to bring more of the feeling concepts to the table. I think it's a concept, it's a reality that we need to look at, how we're feeling. And my programs, my private sessions are helping those individuals who are sensitive, who are empathic, move to a place of knowing themselves more and strengthening who they are energetically. So the outside world is not invading. As a matter of fact, you're just radiating. That's the end result of working with me. And I do a lot of speaking engagements and a lot of workshops. So the message is clear. The message is clearly for anyone who knows and wants to become more familiar with feeling, because society has moved so into thinking. We think everything is the way that it is, and we think our way through it. And I'm asking people to take another look, because feelings really are going to be the catalyst of whether you're loving your life or not. So they need attention. So,
yeah. Great. Awesome. So Michelle's comments are perfect, because this is really about feeling. Empathy is feeling, and sometimes empathy, we take on other people's energy, and yeah. So Michelle and I both serve a population. We do similar things very differently, and my population is those who experience sudden loss. Her population is heart-centered people who are looking for change as well, right? Is that correct?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Lori, welcome. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you here. We both appreciate that you've come. And this is really a dialogue. Michelle and I thought we'd come on and answer questions and spend up to an hour with you. And then we'll go from there. And as you can see, Michelle's trying to share her the live stream on her page as well. And so it's all good. Welcome again. Michelle, would you like to just lead it off with
Sure.
why you wanted to do a joint venture here?
Well, my point with my peeps, with my followers, with getting a message out there, I've been, how do I say it, very reserved in how I share about empathy and what this idea is. And I think a lot of people shy away from talking about this topic because it's a little bit sensitive, outside the norm. People may not grasp it. They may look at you like you're different, but I think everybody is empathic in the messages across the board. Everybody is going through an awakening. They may or they may not know it. And I looked at you and I'm like, Kathleen's on the same wavelength. We've got a similar message, but it's an important message. And the way that we share it and the way that we can reach people as, we reach out to a network of others, I think the more we highlight one another, the stronger the message will be, and the stronger and the more people will say, yeah, hell yeah, I am very sensitive to energy. I can feel what's right. I can feel what's wrong. I ignore my emotions because they're too complicated. I may sit back and think there's something wrong with me because I feel overwhelmed or depressed or anxious, where, people bring it, the society has brought it to, they talk about wellness, they talk about mental health, mental illness, mental stigma, all those topics. It's, if we can just bring in another piece of the puzzle, which is an awareness of the energy around us, an awareness of the energy that we take in, that we radiate, it really changes the focus from outside looking out to looking in, and the power and control that you have in that space. So we're not reliant on the outside world.
Right. When you what you just said about your feelings and having, all those feelings, and people sometimes don't even realize that what's happening with them. Right. So the question for our audience, and again, I just want to mention that please type in the comments, the chat, your name, where you're coming from. Thank you, Lori. Lori's coming from Pennsylvania. What you would like to get out of this conversation as well, so where we can meet your needs. And that's really, Michelle mentioned it earlier, that's why we're here. We're here to be more educational. And the more we collaborate and be of service and not compete, the more people will hear the message. And so my question to all of you, or to you who's listening, is, do you actually walk into a room? Just think about the last time you walked into a room of a number of people. And that could have been a year ago, who knows, since it's in the middle of COVID. But if you were to walk into a room, does your energy shift when you walk into that room? Does your energy, like you walk in and you're happy and all of a sudden you feel cold or heavy or a little anxious or sad? And if you are, that's part of what we talk about is that is empathy, is that sometimes when we're empathetic and we don't realize it, we're taking on the energy of the room. Or maybe you meet someone and you have an instant like, ooh, that energy does, something's wrong here. Like I feel off a little. Or you meet someone and think, wow, they have great energy. I feel really happy around them. So go ahead, Michelle. Like you have something to say.
That's that's where you start. You start to notice that certain people or certain places impact you one way or another way, or a friend calls and you look at the caller ID, you're like, I don't want to talk to this person. Why don't you want to talk to this person? Right? What is it about them and you exchanging? Because there's exchanges with every single situation that we're in. There are people that I know that go on Facebook and they're like, I can't do Facebook anymore. There are people that look at the news. I can't do the news anymore. That is a source of energy exchange. And it does impact you. And you do need to be aware of that. A lot of, I always give this example. I was involved in an organization with women and I was doing their programs, and it was very, I don't want to say stressful, but it was stressful for me to be very aware of what all these women that were managing this were about. And things were kind of almost like the political scene. In some way, we were riding a roller coaster. So we had an event and I went to it. I was planning it. And immediately I could look at, it was not a good scene for me personally. So
Yeah.
as I was walking out, because I had an event to go to for my son, as I was walking out each step of the way, leaving that room, I'm like, better, 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 right? Then I go to my son's event because that's why I left, because I had to leave. I had to get somewhere else. 150, 200 people in this event. I am perfectly fine. Nothing, no concern, no nothing to worry about. And to me, it just speaks to what we're sensing, what we're connected to already, what we're tuned into, and what is the atmosphere in that room. So it's not like one dimensional, oh, it's this person that just destroyed this. It's it's what we're connected to. So, and how we relate to it. And there's the energy part of it. That's an energetic awareness. And for some people, this whole idea of being impacted by a room seems far-fetched and not relevant. But if they start paying attention, they will notice. They'll go up, they'll go down. Each thing is either helping you expand or restricting how you feel.
Yeah.
And then there is how much you allow that. Like, how strong are you to impact that versus that impacting you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's great comments, Michelle. I agree with you completely. And there's a couple of comments on my private group called "From Grief to Belief: Stepping Stones," and one of them is a person who lost their son to suicide in September of 2020. And so I just want to say, there's no words that I can say that's going to make you feel better. And so I just want you to know that I hold you in love and compassion, and as does Michelle. And your feelings, her comment was, I feel dammed up, unable to process my feelings and energy. And that is such a good point, Lorianne, that your feelings are dammed up because you're right in the thick of the grief. And your body, I'm just going to explain a little like how empathy, energy works, is that your body is protecting you right now, because your body is saying there's only so much that you can handle. And there's only so much that you can feel at this particular moment. So expecting yourself to be able to feel anything other than your pain, the emotions that you're feeling stuck in right now, it is a common, it is normal. It is exactly where you're supposed to be in this particular moment. And From Grief to Belief: Stepping Stones program that I'm starting at the end of January, it's an 8-week virtual program that's specific for people who are in the thick of it right now. So I might encourage you not to expect yourself to feel differently right now, and allow yourself to feel what you're feeling and continue to breathe. I call it the grief prescription. It's the 3 B's: be in the moment, breathe consciously, and believe that you're not alone, believe you can move through this, and believe you can and will feel differently over time, as long as you continue to step into your healing journey, just one step at a time. So I just wanted to assure people that to feel differently, to expect yourself to feel differently, is truly another layer of judgment on yourself. And so I just might encourage you to know that you're okay where you are, and the program might be worth it for you. And if you're interested, just go to CathleenElle.com and you can sign up through that. Michelle, do you have anything to add to that? Because I just wanted to make sure we address.
Yes,
okay.
death, grief, especially on so many levels. A child, I can't imagine anything worse. To be honest, I just went through a death of my dad a year ago, but still it's there. It took a while. And, at first you might be really, really strong and move through it, because this is what I need to do. This is where we're going to need to go next. You're kind of numb to it. But as soon as you can have a chance to relax and allow yourself to take a look at what is now not here with you. There are so many levels, and each of us will take it differently. We'll look at it differently. But I want to say there's people that stuff down all of the emotions that come with losing someone you love, whether it's a mother, a father, a child. It's important to move through this and allow yourself to feel. It could be anger, it could be resentment, it could be, just pure grief. I miss you. Why? I would encourage you to allow that, as uncomfortable as what it is, allow it. And have people there that can support you, not, move yourself. Let's just move through this. I don't like this feeling anymore. I'm going to shut this down. No, don't do that, because the relationship was too precious not to have impacted you. I know people that have worked with me that have pushed it all down and continued with life, and felt, 10 years later, they're looking at it and crying. I didn't want to. I couldn't look at it. It wasn't important. Like, they have regret over what they put in the corner and avoided, because you just lost a human being in your life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments. And, this live is really about empathy, intuition, and awakening. And it's not specific to grief. And please feel free to continue to ask questions and post in here. So, and reach out to me individually, Lorianne. I'd be happy to assist you, as I mentioned before. So, as far as empathy, intuition, and awakening, do you have any specifics that you want to share, Michelle, on what direction you want to go in?
All right. Well, I would say we should talk a little bit about how we define empathy. How are we looking at this? Because, empathy could be, I feel you. I understand you, right? To a certain degree. I'm talking about empathy where you're feeling what is around you and you're feeling yourself. Like, when you have empathy related to emotions, you have empathy for somebody. Sure, if you can separate from them, oh yeah, they're sad, they feel this, they feel that. But when you take that on, it's another level of it. When you feel them in you, when you feel their emotions as much as you would feel your own, and you could technically get lost in the emotional exchange of who somebody else is. And those people, they've brought in a name for it. You're an empath. You're empathic. You're able, and a person that's empathic uses that empathy because they understand somebody well enough to uplift another person. It's almost like you're taking them and you're shifting the way that they feel by, it's almost like you're tuning into their emotions so much that you can just raise it up. It's okay. Like, and it alleviates the emotions of another person. A lot of counselors are empathic. A lot of nurses are. I have friends that are and friends that aren't. Of course, on a certain level, I think everyone's empathic, but my empathic friends make me feel better almost instantly. They are uplifting. They're joyful. They're there for me. If someone's not empathic, to me, they spin it. The energy goes down. So I kind of look at the engagement with people. Some people have all this wonderful, beautiful energy to share, and other people, no, I don't really know how you feel. I feel sorry for you. I'm sorry this happened to you. Do you know what I mean? They're not moving in. It's so to me, empath empathy is a heart-to-heart connection, true empathy, a heart-to-heart connection with another person where you truly understand and you can uplift them, as opposed to being back. Yeah, that's really hard. I'm so sorry for you. I'm sorry. Like, it's just hard to put into words, but some people don't really get it. It's not coming from the heart. You're not getting an uplift.
Yeah. And so from my perspective, it's so interesting. We all have like a little different perspective, and that's
Yeah.
why we're on this call. And so please go ahead and comment in the comments below, who's here, what you're interested in, and see if you can just tell us if you can relate to this. But from my perspective, for empathy is, not only can you understand someone else's feelings and you can hold space, but for an empath, you actually take on their emotions.
Okay.
You feel their emotions. You're taking their emotions on. So you become one with them instead of holding space for them. So for empathy, it's almost an not unhealthy, but if you're not sure how to hold space as an empath, and you are taking on the energy of others, then you're an empath that doesn't know how to separate the two. And I've been an empath my entire life, as you have, I'm sure, Michelle. And there was a time where, not too long ago, that when someone actually experienced the death of a dog, or they had a job loss, or they had a fight with their partner, I actually took on their emotions. I could actually feel what they were feeling. And so I didn't know that was their feelings. I just thought I was I thought I was just being caring. And what that did for me, or to me, was that I gained weight. I had emotional swings. I became angry when I didn't even know I was angry, or I didn't even know why. There are things that I did that mirrored the person that I was with. And so for an empath who doesn't realize they're an empath, they're likely to take on other people's emotions, from my perspective. Allie just said, what are some good ways to be there for people when they're going through a hard moment like grief? Sometimes it's hard to know what to say. So just a great question, Allie. And would you like me to answer that, Michelle? Would you like to go ahead?
Yeah.
Ways that you can help people, Allie, that are going through grief. I'll just use grief because that's what you mentioned, is really just holding space, asking questions about their loved one or about their experience, and then just being there, knowing that they're listening. And so this is an example. So you ask, asking how you're doing on a regular basis tends to be like, are you kidding me? How do you think I'm doing? I just lost my loved one, And so instead of asking those kind of questions, ask about their loved one. Ask about what they missed the most, what they loved the most, what made them laugh the most, and then repeat back to them what you heard. Because it's very similar to someone who's going through depression or anxiety. Oftentimes we just want you to know that you're there. That we just want you to know that we're being heard, and that their loved one's name or presence is not going to be lost. And so that way you're not taking on their emotions. You're there with them, you're present, and you're responding to them on what they said. So I hope that answered your question. If not, please go ahead and just type in and ask again, Allie, or ask in a different way. Michelle, do you have anything to add to that?
I think it's hard, because when someone goes through grief, they really need to, other people can be there to a certain extent. I would personally just say, listen, would you like to go for a walk? And yes, the conversation is good. It just depends on what I'm feeling that they need at that point in time from me. So it would kind of shift depending on who the person is and what the topic is. Sometimes people can't even handle talking about it. They'll be in tears the whole time, which is okay. And being able to hold space is a huge thing, even for someone crying and upset. You don't have to solve it. You just have to be there.
Exactly.
And it's an uncomfortable place to be, because, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get, the better it is for everybody involved. So.
And it really isn't about your comfort. If you truly want to be there for someone who is grieving, it's about their comfort. And so you made a good point, Michelle, that it depends on what people need. Everybody grieves differently. So a question you could ask is, I am here for you, and I want you to know I love you, and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help you. And so could you help me? Could you tell me how I could help you?
Yeah.
And that gives the person who is grieving the opportunity to say, I don't know how you can help me. I just am lost. And you can say, I can understand that, or I don't know how you feel. And I love you. That's it. You don't have to solve it. You just have to let them know that you're there. The other way that you could help someone who's grieving is to show up with dinner, or to show up, as Michelle said, and go for a walk. Just ask. I mean, the most uncomfortable thing to say is the right thing, which means if you don't know what they're going through, you can say, I don't know what you're going through. I can't know what you're going through because I haven't experienced it. And I can tell you, I love you and I care about you, and I want to support you in whatever way that you need support. And I need help with that. That's it.
This reminds me of, I was talking to a lady recently. She's a grief counselor now, but when her dad died, she heard from family, and it was when she was young. Get over it. When are you going to get over it? When are you going to move on? Like all these things that are not necessarily helpful. And she didn't know the word empathy or empath at all. She goes, Michelle, I took this so hard. Yeah. And you're going to take it, that she really had years of grief that she dealt with. Mm-hmm. And no one would understand. No one understood why it was. And that's so unhelpful to anybody, to make you feel like there's something, she was struggling to release it. And there are ways to emotionally release, when you feel stuck, and when you get stuck in certain situations and you can't let things go, like you have to have a little compassion because it takes time, but watching someone continue to be devastated and in pain isn't easy either. So you're kind of, being that person who might be stuck isn't going to be fun either. You're going to know it. People around you are going to know it. So it's being open to, are there other solutions? How can I move through this? Because life continues. People, for one reason or another, do pass on. They transition. And at some point, we are all going there. So we have to, learn about the process and allow the process to unfold, knowing that we still have 10, 20, 30, 40 years and our loved ones are in spirit. And that's not what we want to necessarily hear or we want to have happen, but that's how it rolls. So it's gauging, how are we going to be heart-centered and uplifting and helpful to another person, and help them. There are resources that we help one another, so you almost have to ask permission of the person, because the person always knows what they need. When the timing is right, they will take action. It's just being delicate about it.
Yeah. And I don't know, from my experience, I didn't know what I needed, I will be honest that I didn't know what I needed at certain times. I know what I needed, and I needed my son back, that's what I needed, and I wasn't going to get it. And so oftentimes it is really about what we want and can't have. And, this isn't a grief live, but I just wanted to respond to some of the questions here. So how empathy plays a role in whether it's grief or wanting to be a heart-centered being in life. And empathy plays a role, you can know that you're empathic and and you're taking on other people's emotions by your body's response, would be my definition of empath. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does, because that's definitely part of it. For me, it's about, my definition of it is, empaths tend to feel to such a high degree the space around them and the people around them as if they're one with them,
Mm-hmm.
which is and is not helpful, because we are not one with every, we are not, it's not going to serve us to be one with everybody that we meet, period. It's not going to serve us. So the empath struggle is to tone down that emotional connection with everybody around them and to redefine who they are, because it's going to be an automatic struggle. When you can connect with everybody around you, you're not going to want to hurt anybody. Mm-hmm. You're going to feel their pain, and you're not going to want to make them uncomfortable, because then you feel that uncomfortable. So it comes back to redefining, and, almost for some of us, for the first time, who we are compared to the world out there, who other people.
Yeah. I love this discussion. It's just like so fun because of just the different perspectives and in play and what have you. It's like, when the world has discourse in it, which, let's just say it as it is, the world has a lot of discourse right now, and it also has a lot of love and compassion. And what we're feeling the most of is the discourse. As an empath, sometimes I can wake up angry or irritated, or sometimes people wake up with anxiety. And when we wake up that way, the question we can ask, it's really about being aware that you're an empath, like becoming aware that how can you respond to those emotions? And so if I wake up irritated, the first thing I say to myself, am I irritated because of something inside me, or am I irritated because there's something happening around the world? It's just it's an opportunity to say, is this my emotion, or is this someone else's emotion? And so really, being an empath is not bad. It's great. And what could take on a difficult tone is that you're not aware that you're an empath and you're taking on other people's emotions. So some of the tools that we could use as an empath, for me, it is that question, is this mine, or is this someone else's? And if I notice that my energy shifts when I walk into a room or when I walk into a grocery store. Now, there are things that we're still doing. We're still going to the grocery store. Some people are still going to work. We're all still doing Zoom and live Facebooks, and, energetically, we're taking on people's energy even when we're reading people's posts. There's stuff around social media as well. So being aware of your emotions, your bodily reaction, your ability to respond to the world, is just that. Ask the question, because you will know. I mean, I instantly get, oh, this is not yours. This is, when I say, is this mine? It will be yes or no. And then you can ask further questions.
So when you say that, Kathleen, that is like a number one thing that a lot of people do. What comes to mind is, you've got to trust your intuition. You've got to develop that rapport with who you are, what your body feels like, what your emotions are, who you are. And because a lot of people for years and years and years have not even known about this dynamic, they define themselves by what other people think and say. They've never spent that time. Mm-hmm. It hasn't, until all of a sudden one day, they feel like they're empty. They feel disconnected. They don't necessarily identify. So there's lots of labels for what that look, what that is, what that could look like, who those people are or aren't. But unless we individually take the time to know who we are and develop a rapport with ourselves, we're not going to know. Because I always say, we're always looking out. That's beautiful, right? But what about looking in?
Mm-hmm.
What about self-definition? What about emotions? What about feelings? What about your intuition? Are you validating it or is it getting dismissed? Because as I grew up, I had knowings all the time. I didn't even know what it was specifically at all. I was moody. I know at the end of the day, I had to come home and write. The process of writing, journaling helped me clear things. I wasn't on purpose doing anything one way or another. I was just living.
Mm-hmm.
So the intuition was dismissed. My mom, at different points, I would say, "Well, I know why this happened, and I know what you're thinking." And I would. She's like, "Michelle, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't this, you don't that, you don't." And she would deny it. But now retrospect, what 52, 53 years old that I am, I understand that nobody wants to hear what you think or what they think unless it's something positive. Keep it to yourself. Like they will stonewall you. Like they may not be of that philosophy that intuition is relevant and that they may not see their own emotions or their own darkness or their own projections. So it becomes a tug of war with another person. But as you become an adult, separating, understanding, and compassion when you relate with other people. Like as a young teenager, I had no compassion. You make me mad, I'm going to tell you exactly what it is that you made me mad about. And I'm going to use whatever knowing I have to quote unquote win or put you in your place in some way. But as an adult now, I can see how to handle those situations and where my children are at and support my own growth through intuitive development and trust myself. How many women do I talk to who are dismissed and they don't necessarily want to trust their intuition because it's not logical. It's not provable.
So I'm curious. I'm
Yeah.
curious, what is intuition? I know what intuition is, but our listener, again, please go ahead and type in the comments if you have questions or let us know that you're here. But what is intuition to you? Like, how could you explain to a listener on what intuition is for you?
So for me, intuition is it's a knowing. It's mainly for me a knowing. I didn't process it logically on a piece of paper, what I'm going to do. Intuition is just, I'm going to flow with this. This feels right to me. Intuition is an expansion to me. And then, so I go in the direction of the feeling of expansion. And that's and intuition kind of drops into me specifically. So it's different for everyone. Some people hear it, some people know it, some people sense it. A lot of times it's a mix of all of that. But intuition is something to me, I feel it. I feel when something is right. And when I don't feel that it's right, guess what? It's not right. I'm like, so that's how I get my communication. But somebody else, it could be, let me ask a question. Is this mine or somebody else's?
Yeah.
And you can trust that answer because that's your comfort zone. That's your language. That's how you speak to intuition.
Yeah. So intuition for me is the ability to know in one form or another in an unconscious way. So, you may get a thought that pops into your head, or let's just say you're driving down the road and all of a sudden you get this thought, oh, I should turn right and go to whatever. And your normal path would be to continue to go straight. That's an intuition hit. That's an intuitional hit. That's, when it's like, I should go right, turn right, try it, test it out and see, because a lot of people don't follow their intuition. And I would be the one that I lived without following my intuition for a number of years. But there's just an unconscious knowing about something. Sometimes you get words, sometimes you see. There are people who actually see, like a vision. Other people have their body, their body talks to them. And other people just know. It just is. And you just follow that. Now, you just follow that. That's so much easier said than done when we're not taught that. So it's really like one step at a time, testing out your intuition. Because I will just give a short example for me. I knew several times let me just go to a positive one. When I was in the legislature, I sat on the Judiciary Committee, and we were debating a landmark bill called Civil Unions. And as we were sitting there, we came up with a law, and then we had to name what the law was. And I heard these words, civil union. And so I just blurted out, why don't we call it civil union? It's a civil process, and it's a union between two people. So just let's call it civil union. At the time, when I was a legislator and serving, I did not realize I was given that information. That's intuition. But today, as I look back, those words came out of nowhere for me. And so today, as I look back and say, oh my gosh, that was my intuition sharing with me that's what we should call it. There's other times for me that I will say that I had that hit inside my body, like my stomach would turn. I'm like, you shouldn't do that. And I went ahead and did it anyways and realized I shouldn't have done that. Like there are times that we make choices and ignore that inner knowing. That's where the conflict happens in our life a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you got the churning, but then something overrode the churning, whether it's, no, I think I need to try that, so there was something that you got from it, even if it was not the ideal experience for you.
No, so the point for me is more of like we have patterns in our life. We create stories based on our younger child self. From 0 to 8 is how we respond to the rest of the world, is how we were taught from 0 to 8 years old. That's science that's been proven, that we respond to the world based on what we were taught when we were 0 to 8 until we become more aware, until we invest in our healing. And so those patterns became repetitive patterns in my life. And I continued to ignore my intuition, the hits, because I was taught not to trust my intuition as a child, not consciously taught. My parents didn't consciously teach me that, no, don't listen to that. It's a pattern of what we experience as a child.
Right. So there are, it just comes to mind, there are parents that are consciously aware to nurture that inner child's strength and identity of who they are. And then there are parents, and we've all, that are so
they're doing the best they can.
Right. They're protective. They're parenting. This is how they parent. And they could dismiss the ideas and the thoughts and the emotions. And then you take that because they're your role models. They care. They teach you how it is, right? So if they didn't see value in it, then it's not real. There's no value in this.
So they teach you based on what they were taught. And so again, it's like the cycle, the generational teachings. They do the best they can with what they have and what they know. And so this is not about me placing blame on my parents or the adults in my life. It's just they did the best they could with what they knew. My birth father was an abusive alcoholic. And my experience as a child was sexual, physical, emotional abuse. And that is not because they were bad people. It's just like what occurred in my birth father's life that created the person that he was, to be able to do what he had done. And that was really about his teachings, his knowings, like it's a cycle, it's a pattern. And until we're willing to invest in ourselves and move through our healing so we can trust our intuition and truly be the empath that we are without taking on other people's emotions, then we continue to create that downward cycle or that pattern. And then we create that pattern in our children's lives. So when we invest in our our healing, so where we can move through and start to trust our intuition and sit in the empathic being that we are, we create this awakening within us. It's not like we're woke, so to speak. There's a constant learning, a constant growth, and a constant healing journey for all of us. But the awakening is the new ahas, the new awarenesses, the new like, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. That was an old pattern. And it's like creating new patterns. And that's, the healings that I participate in, that I teach, that I work through in my programs and through my books, is just that. I teach people how to heal through their experiences and create new awarenesses, so where they can create new patterns. And I think that you do the same, Michelle, in a different way, but
in a different way. Absolutely. So unconsciously, we do what we know to do until we know to do something different. And
right.
we spin stories and we're either angry or upset or until we recognize that our state of beingness, our state of feeling is more relevant and more that is who we become. We will repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. And that's why we have, sometimes it takes 10, 15 years to get out of certain patterns. And I like the space that we're in right now. Humanity is about development. Humanity is about awareness. And yes, you're seeing a lot of disturbances out there, a lot of emotional uprisings. And until you see something manifest in front of you, until you feel your stuff, you don't even know it's there. Mm-hmm. So there's an uncomfortable stage we all go through in order to clear things or shift, transform into the next best version of ourselves. And whether it's our parents, doing the best that they can, which they all do, we all do. And even me as a parent, you as a parent, we do what we know to do. It's all coming from love, but we don't know what we don't know. So we repeat it, right? So this is a good time to
embrace your intuition.
Step into your fullest potential and learn about yourself. And I say this all the time. If I, this house, me as a mom, I can shift a lot of situations if I'm in the right space. Mm-hmm. So my daughter could be having a meltdown. My husband could be stressed out. But when I can hold a certain space, that's all good. It's how I respond to them. Like I am, quote unquote, dancing with this whole scenario here in this house. I'm dancing with what's going on in the world and what makes me dance the best. How do I not, falter to what's happening around me? The dynamics are their own. And then there is how I respond to them. So I could either, make it a positive interaction for them, or I could make it a negative. So, and a lot of what I've seen is years and years and years and years of suppressing of emotion, suppressing of pain and resentments, and they're still there in the background lurking. We just shoved them here, there, and everywhere else. And the moment we, open up the chest, turn over the carpet, you might be uncomfortable, but you will feel so much lighter when you have allowed that to leave. And when you've looked at your past and said, you know what? This taught me this, which shaped me into this. Like, and instead of holding on to the trigger, the anxiety, the charge of what that was, the injustice of what that was, and you change it all, you transmute it. Empaths are really good at this. If they learn how to do this, step into it, transmute it, clear it, lighten it, and you don't have that same charge. You feel better. You feel much better.
And so, you bring up a good point, the old saying, and I don't ever quote it exactly right, but it's the more that we avoid the uncomfortable feelings, the things that we're holding, the more hold it has on us. So the more that we push away the darkness, the more we push away the light, because the darkness takes hold. And there is dark and light in every form of the universe. The moon has, we only see the bright side, but on the backside it's dark. The same with the sun. Like there's light and dark, there's rough and smooth and everything. And so it's part of being an empath, or knowing how to move through being an empath and using your intuition to awaken ourselves, is about learning how to do that. And so we're coming up upon the hour, and I would just love, Michelle, like, what are some of the things some of the programs you have that can help people? And then I'll close it out with what I have. And
Sure.
Unless people have questions, but yeah.
Right. Well, I have a community on Facebook called the Empath Evolutions Community, and I do some lives in there, and I train on different topics. I personally see the empath path as a very spiritually connected path. And the more you know about spiritual law, your humanity, your role, I see us as a role as light workers. We are here to hold a certain vibration that helps us and others. We're not here to get lost in the muck of what's around us. We're not here to solve other people's problems. We're here to be able to hold our own, which means we need to be able to look at our own darkness. So we're not amplifying that. We're amplifying the light that's in us. So there's more to that, but working privately with people, I enjoy. I like to see them make different strides. And I work with clearing their energy body, teaching them some tools and some strategies and some techniques and how to interact. I find that a lot of our, when we reframe and we see something differently and we learn how to speak what we need and who we are, everything shifts. And then I have a program starting in May. It's called Journey to Awakening. And we go through lots of topics and lots of clearing, quantum energy clearing meditations, and people discover their own strength and their own capacity to clear and heal, because we are all our own healers. We do that. The body has the capacity to heal itself. And that is the goal. That's the evolutionary path that I see in front of us. So I know I look at this very seriously, because to me, it's I don't know, it's my goal, it's my mission. And I'm passionate about how strong we are and in what our role is and what we can do for ourselves, not just ourselves, our family, our ancestors, all of that put together. So spiritually, knowing what your gifts are, what your tools can be, what your wounds were, and releasing things, I just think it's an amazing way to go. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. And for me, I assist people in moving through the healing journey. And I love to just use the thought as, if you picture yourself, you picture a glass. A lot of people say that your glass is either half full or half empty. Yeah. I like to use the analogy that when we avoid our feelings and we become numb and just existing, our glass gets smaller and smaller because it gets filled up with the muck of life. And so it starts to create like tar in there. And so the glass is this big, and now you have this much just all dark and all black, and you're only operating from the top. So is your glass really half full or half empty? You really don't have a whole glass. So you're only operating from this much in your life. And when we as empaths, or we as going through a grieving process or a grieving experience, whether it's a job loss, a death, a diagnosis, an event in your life in any way, that other reserve that you have is gone. And so you're truly just existing, and you're just just climbing through. So what I teach people or what I assist people in doing is to move through that healing process. So where they start to chip away at that tar. So where they can start to fill their glass up completely and fill themselves up. So my programs are about taking care of you. They're about you stepping into your journey, so where you can live in your highest and best in every way possible. And when you're living in your highest and best and your glass is overflowing, then you can start to serve others through the overflow. So you're never depleted, because the more that we give to others, when we start to when we don't receive, when we choose not to take care of ourselves, the less we have, and it just keeps chipping away, and then you have nothing left. And so then you have dis-ease, you have disorder, you have you could even not even be here. So the importance of really filling your glass up with that light and that love and that caring, so where you can embrace your empathy and really see things differently. You become aware of things differently. And I do that through one-on-one intuitive coaching. I have a couple of spots left for 2021. So if people are interested, you can just connect with me at CathleenElle.com. I also have healing programs. I have this amazing sacred healing circle that you become a member. You can do one healing circle at a time, or you become a member for 6 months and you get 2 healing circles a month, and you get coffee with Cathleen once a month as well. And that's only for the members of the Sacred Healing Circle. In that circle, I channel, I use oracle cards, I have energy healing that flows through me into you from the divine, and it's a support group. And then the new program that's starting at the end of January is called From Grief to Belief Stepping Stones, which is specific for those who have lost someone suddenly, or stuck in their loss from losing someone. And I speaking engagements, and I have 3 books. In 2020, I became a #1 international bestseller 3 times. And if you're interested in a self-help book that is a bit of a memoir and inspiration, connect with Shattered Together, A Mother's Journey from Grief to Belief. And you can get all 3 books under Cathleen Elle on Amazon or on my website as well. So there's all kinds of programs that both Michelle and I provide, and whatever sings to you, whatever feels good to you, please reach out to Michelle as well, and connect with both of us in the ways that you feel is best for you. This is really about, this live has been a way for us to share with you our expertise, our ability to be of service, and to assist you in finding your own light and your own intuition and trusting in that. Michelle, you want to do a little closing as well? Or?
I just put in the chat my my website, and I'm going to put the link to the group if anyone's interested.
And I'll do the same in all areas. So yeah.
I just want to say that, hold on one more minute. There are many ways of moving through the world and creating what we want. Visualize what we want. Sometimes what we want and what comes and lands in front of us are 2 different things. Mm-hmm. So, the whole idea that we control is really overrated, because we don't control. We can plan, we can envision, we can respond, or we can react, right, and stay, really in the muck of what we don't like and what we don't want to participate in. So it comes back to where our attention is focused and where our hope for the future is focused. And regardless of what hardships come your way, you're going to move through it in like an easier fashion or a harder fashion, but you're going to move through it. And when you're embracing what it is in life, even if it's challenging, and your focus is on how lucky we are to love, to be loved, to share. Like when we focus on the good that is part of life, it all changes. We don't, resist what's here. We look to learn from what's here. We learn to become more compassionate. And I think most of us are dealing with love. We don't necessarily know what love is. We expect this, we expect that. But unconditionally loving and moving through what life brings our way, like unconditional love is a strength, it's a tool we develop. And unfortunately, it's not taught in school. It's not taught. It hasn't been taught. So we need to understand that, embody that. And you could do that through your programs, through my programs. I firmly believe that vibration, divine vibes, like people talk about God, religion, spirit, archangels, angels, whatever you want to call this. We have those light vibrations, those divine things when we pray, when we sit, when we commune with nature. We are enjoying beauty. That is what we need to bring to the table every day in everything that we do. And we're going to run into things that are really, what is this? What is this manipulation? What is this anger? What is this? So when we become curious and instead of dismissing it and getting angry at it back, we understand that it's just a lack of light. It's a lack, someone struggling, depression, anxiety, they're overwhelmed by the dark that's invaded who they are. So then there's a process to move and get yourself acclimated to something different. And you have to be able and willing to face it. Face it and create it and embrace it. So.
And so with what Michelle just said in closing, there is a teaching in every moment, whether you see as good or bad. There's a teaching in every moment in our life, and it's our willingness or not to step into our journey. And so in closing, thank you so much, Michelle, for asking me to join you. I'm so glad that we could do this, and please reach out to us if you need our assistance. Take care.
It's been fun.
Yeah. Take care.